everybody, and welcome to Hold Up, the show where we dive deep inside your childhood nostalgia, pull the movies from your past out to see if they truly hold up. I'm Chase. Today I'm holed up with Andrew and Kyle. As always, Kyle, I think we're on the Kirkland Signature Series hotline, aren't we?
Today we are, as normal. And I just, usually we do this in the middle of our time, but I really just want to take time to thank Kirkland Signature Products for supplying the coffee for this show, and also their Kirkland Signature Products organic coconut water gives me and my family life while we talk about geopolitics and our views on geopolitics. And we just want everybody to know that, again, on the show, our views are the same views as Kirkland Signature Products. So just remember that when you're taking your next sip of Kirkland Signature coconut water, the organic brand, might I add, it will give you life and help your viewpoints evolve and change over time.
I just got off the phone. I was sitting in on a board meeting with the Kirkland Board of Trustees, and they just wanted to express their love and gratitude for us and all of our fans at home, our fans internationally across the globe. They know that your love for us is love for them, and yeah, they're just incredibly thankful for us and that partnership we have.
I couldn't said anything better about the international brand, too, because I was in Puerto Rico, and guess where I stopped by to get meat to grill out at? Costco and Kirkland Signature Series meat. It's everywhere, guys, and it's
worldwide.
In your
baby.
time of need. It was my time of need. I had 6 hungry friends that wanted perfectly healthy, grade A meat, and guess where I found it? I found it at the Kirkland Signature Meat Series at Costco. So you can find it too in your local Costco. Just look for it. It's right there.
Thank you, Kirkland. You are everything. We are nothing without you.
We are nothing without you. Thank you, Kirkland Signature Products.
Yeah, just like the city of New York's nothing without Spider-Man. And that's what we watched today, guys. And I'm not talking about any of the Tom Holland Spider-Mans. We went all the way back in time. We went to 2002 and watched Sam Raimi's Spider-Man starring Tobey Maguire. But before we get into that today, we're going to ask Kyle to describe your energy levels today. And you can use superhero terms. We'll make it simple.
Well, today, superhero terms. I am the person that gets bit by a rabid gopher and then has to go to the hospital for treatment for about 3 weeks in the ER. I then develop a crippling disability by that point, and I cannot treat it because I am so bankrupt from my hospital bills. I then slip into a psychosis in which I slowly start hallucinating, and every night am flying in my dreams. But to the onlooker outside, I'm currently just walking and living my best life. And I mistake one day my ability for flying in my dreams into real life, and then I jump off of a bridge and die.
Okay. So
that was a journey.
Not as good of a day as you've had before, but it doesn't sound like
Not at all
doing that bad, though. It sounds like it's just something that Kirkland can take care of for you.
And they have. And I want to thank Kirkland Signature Products for all they do for anybody.
I've got to stop
ICU.
this. So we've spent 6 minutes like guzzling Kirkland Signature Series, but we watched Spider-Man. This is Andrew's choice today. This is a big one from our childhood. This predates all the Marvel movies that we've seen now. We can get into like how we feel about those later, but Andrew, I want to start with you. Talk a little bit about this movie and what it meant to you as a kid. And how old were you when this came out?
This came out in 2002, so I was 10 years old. This was like the first of its kind. Like, yeah, we had like Spider-Man animated series. I'm pretty sure this was the first live action, like authentic Spider-Man movie.
Well, we had the TV show in the 70s. But we're not counting TV shows and all. Yeah, so as far as movies go, yeah.
This was it. Like, I loved Spider-Man as a kid. I still love Spider-Man. Spider-Man is in my triumvirate of favorite superheroes. I really only care about.
Who are they?
It used to be Batman, Superman, and Spider-Man. Then I ditched Superman. He kind of got boring to me as
He's
I got
OP.
older.
He's very boring. Very boring.
But he is OP. He is important. But Batman and Spider-Man are like my two favorites. It's not particularly close. So when this hit the theaters, I was like, holy shit. I get to see a real live Spider-Man on the big screens. This is exciting. This is everything. And like I don't know, that was around the time when the Amazing Spider-Man animation was huge on Cartoon Network. You had oh, it wasn't on Toonami, but Chase, help me out here. What was the that little segment on Cartoon Network with all the superhero animated shows? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, but the name is escaping me though. But I do remember what you were talking
Maybe
about.
maybe it was Toonami.
It was something like that, yeah.
I think it was Toonami. But you had Batman, you had Spider-Man. There was Superman too, but Spider-Man was the big one for me at that point. So to see it move to the big screen, live action form, it was a dream come true. It was so exciting, and the hype around it was huge.
Well, and
huge.
Like to your point, and Kyle, you can speak to this too in a sec, but like all we had as kids were we had comic books from the 70s, 80s, all those things that got written down, and then we had the animated shows, like we had the animated Batman show, the animated Avenger show, we had all that, but that's all we had.
But you can't forget about the animated Spider-Man and X-Men universe that did cross over in a huge way.
The X-Men and the Spider-Man show were my favorites, and then I do remember the Batman show a lot, but it was super dark. I remember it was more adult than the rest of them. Everything else was kind of like
very dark
kids versions, which I hear people still go back and watch the animated Batman show and say it still holds up. I said the thing.
Oh yeah.
Maybe we should dive into that one day, but yeah, to your point, Andrew, it was all animated. We didn't get the big screen tie-in, so when this was announced, it kind of felt like it was like a Star Wars movie coming to theaters. I remember the hype was huge.
Very big.
Did you go see it, Andrew, in theaters?
Oh yeah. I think I saw it a couple times actually. And it was honestly, when I first watched it, 10 years old, we'll get into it, but it was pretty heavy for a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
Cause I'm pretty sure it's rated PG-13.
It's Sam Raimi.
There's some darker and heavier moments for a young kid, but I remember loving it. It was tough to watch at times, but it blew my world at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. Kyle, what about you? Did you have any of the toys, Kyle? I'm going to ask you that. I mean, we're kind of like, we were a little older. I think that was the end of our toy having genre, even though I had a couple action figures from this because they were really cool. But you can talk a little bit about your childhood with Spider-Man.
Yeah, no toys as we were little. I was like 12 when this came out, so kind of too old for the toys, kind of. But they really pumped this up. And by pumping this up, I mean they really, really pumped up the soundtrack to this movie. And not the Danny Elfman soundtrack, but the actual accompanying soundtrack.
You talking about the hero song that was Nickelback and Saliva coming together?
Terrible.
God, yes.
Terrible. But there were other really good songs, and that's how I got introduced to the Strokes. That's how I got introduced to Macy Gray. There was a lot of really good artists that were actually sick. I don't know how those songs were in the movie, if they were at all, except for the Macy Gray song, because the rest of it's just essentially Danny Elfman score. But I remember that was my really big connection with it. Was that's how I got introduced to a lot of different bands back in the day.
And I actually appreciated that they didn't put all that music into the movie and shoehorn it in this capitalistic thing, which the Macy Gray song that's in it, which we'll get to, is organically done. It makes sense in the setting that they put it in. But yeah, I'm glad you brought up the soundtrack. I do remember that soundtrack. But I remember as a kid thinking that hero song slapped so hard.
Chase, did you play any of the video games that were spawned from this movie? I feel like you had to. These were some great games.
I played the first and second game. The second game is legendary for the second movie. The first one, I remember it being pretty formulaic, but it was really cool at the time. Obviously, kids
this
now...
This is on the PC, right? that you're talking about?
It was on PlayStation. It was on
I got it on PlayStation too.
Yeah. And the second
Maybe.
game was more open world. The first game was linear, and the second game you could just zip around New York City, which at that time, I know we have a lot of open world games with massive maps now, but back then we didn't have that much. And to have a game like this that was super open world and you can just zip around New York and fight crime at your leisure, it was a lot of fun. I put so much time into that game. It was pretty hard too. Yeah, I played the first one. I don't remember much about it. I remember it being kind of fun, but you kind of like were caged in. You couldn't really use all the Spider-Man powers, so it didn't really feel like you were Spider-Man. But yeah, I do remember playing them. I mean, but Spider-Man was in a host of games. I mean, there's so many games for Spider. I mean, like any superhero out there, right? Like that's common knowledge. But think about like the NES games. I remember playing like a Spider-Man on the NES, and it was like impossible to play. And then there's been several good ones since then. There was a ton of bad. But Andrew, Kyle, both of you, did you guys play any Spider-Man games other than what came out in that day and age?
You said the second one that came from the second movie. That's the one that I think I honed into a lot. It's funny that you mentioned that because when watching this movie, I kept conflating scenes from the second one, thinking they were coming up here in the original we watched. It was the second one, though, that really, really set me off in terms of the video game. Like that one, I'll never forget it. Because the first one that came out, it was good, but it was really challenging. And I think I just kind of got annoyed with it and didn't feel like giving it a chance. But the second one, like that, the immersion, the map, everything, that sucked me in. That's one that I'll put up there with like Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and other games in that early 2000s PlayStation 2 world. Like that one is up there for me.
Well, and two, like in that day and age too, every movie, most movies anyway, popular movies, they would have a video game tie-in, and it happened
for sure.
Late 80s on. I mean, when video games started becoming what they are, a lot of movie tie-ins became a thing because like you didn't have the internet to. I mean, we did with Spider-Man, don't get me wrong, but leading up to that point, you didn't have the internet, so what's the best way to advertise is like show you a game that was tied to a movie you just saw and liked, like Predator, right? Predator had so many games, and it's like, oh, I can't look up a review of this game or see if it's good or see what people think of it. I just kind of have to know I like Predator the movie. This game can't be bad. So that was a good way to market video games to a lot of people early on. And we were still at that point in the early 2000s because I remember when the Bourne movie came out, it had a video game tie-in. I remember the Fantastic Four had a video game tie-in. The Incredible Hulk, like anything that came out that you could tie a video game into, that kind of is where it shifted. It went, obviously there was always going to be toys and merchandise like that, but video games were just a huge market for making more money, and anything that you can get kids to want to buy or get their parents to buy, they would do. And it was no different for this movie. This movie had everything. Because I remember the summer of Spider-Man. I remember, going into like Walmart with my mother and just like walking through the door, and the first thing you see is all the Spider-Man stuff. Like the mask, the costumes, anything and everything. Like there was Spider-Man branded wallpaper, Spider-Man branded bed sheets. It was... I don't know telling how much money this movie made off the merchandise alone. It is.
Let's hope that Tobey Maguire's agent got a really good deal on the merchandise. I hope for his sake, but it seems that he does because he hasn't really done anything else but Spider-Man.
I mean, Willem Dafoe said he was able to retire off Spider-Man alone. So, like, I think we'll get to Andrew's numbers in a second, but yeah, this movie was just everywhere, and like I said, it was kind of a big deal when we were kids because before this, we didn't really have superhero movies. We had the Batman movies from Tim Burton, but it had been a while, and then we had the two stinkers with Batman Forever and Batman and Robin that kind of ruined that. Looking at the Marvel Universe now and how they pump out these movies, and we've talked about it on this show about how they're formulaic, they kind of suck now, whatever. That's not the point. The point being is they're still kind of entertaining, and at least you're going to get an entertaining movie. back in those days, you would get these off-the-wall superhero movies where directors had no clue about the source material, and they would just kind of go off the cuff, and we'd get these like horrible films, and they would be either campy and cheesy or too serious. And that was your kind of the two lanes that people were living in for a very long time. So we were desperate for one. This is the first Spider-Man adaptation that hit the theaters, and we were desperate for something good that was about the source material. And I remember as 90s kids, we didn't really early 90s, yes, but like late 90s into the early 2000s when we were becoming of age, comic books kind of went to the wayside. I know that was a big thing for my dad and a thing for my brother, and then it kind of filtered off with me. I remember my friends weren't reading comic books, but I got some, like my dad was a huge Spider-Man fan, so I got a lot of like stuff from him and my brother, and that's what made me a Spider-Man fan. But if I didn't have my dad and he didn't grow up in the 70s, like trading comic books and all that stuff, I probably wouldn't have cared. And because of that, I cared a lot more. And it seemed like it revitalized comic books. This movie did, and started the trend towards that Iron Man movie that kicked off the new Marvel universe. Because at the time, people forget that Marvel had become so bankrupt, it sold off all of its assets. This movie is owned by Sony, and Sony owned the rights for Spider-Man for so long that Marvel had to work really hard to buy the rights back, and even they don't even own the full rights. Sony has cucked them pretty hard, but
which is great
and good for them, because Spider-Man as a brand is incredibly lucrative.
Yeah, and think about the latest two Spider-Man games that are considered revolutionary, and people love those. Those are Sony exclusives. Because Sony had done the smart thing and hedged its bets and bought the rights for pennies, made this movie in 2002, and it kind of kick-started everything, and they kind of kept their hand on the rights. You know, obviously we had some more tumultuous times after this, but think about this movie started, and then we got a Daredevil movie, we got an Elektra movie, we got a Catwoman movie. It started the Nolan Batmans. It started the Iron Man movie. Without this movie, we probably don't have what we have today. But, Andrew, how successful was it? I am so curious.
My God. I want you all, I was just going to blurt them out, but I want you all to guess with this. Give me a guesstimate on what you think the budget was.
For this movie?
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be tough because there's a mix of practical effects and also CGI, and this is at the advent of CGI.
I'll give you a hint. It's in the 9 figures.
Ooh.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, with the amount of pre-marketing and stuff they did, it's probably on the higher side. So why don't we say, I'm going to say 180 million.
It's not a bad guess, Chase.
I was going to say roughly around that. I was going to say 160 million.
A little bit closer. It's 139 million.
Which is a big gamble.
That's a big gamble, but just, give you some knowledge about what they did opening week. Domestic opening was 115 million, so they almost earned all of that back from the first week.
Crazy.
Wow.
I did see something where they said they set a record first week. I didn't look at because I tried to avoid that. So I'm assuming that was a record that first.
I mean, those box office opening week records, I feel like get broken all the time. But I would
especially
imagine
now.
At that time, I would imagine at the time that was something. But so domestically, altogether, about 409 million.
God.
Internationally, 402 million altogether. For like 811 million altogether, what they grossed. And you know that eclipsed $1 billion with all of the marketing and toys and games and everything. So this movie fucking raked in the dollars. Holy shit, did it make back what they put into it and then some. I mean, I think that's a record for what we have seen in terms of movie numbers. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm sure Star Wars Episode 1 was probably close, but this one, I feel like this one's up there.
Yeah.
I feel like this one's up there.
Yeah. That's a great reference, Andrew, because like I said, this had the fanfare of a Star Wars film, because remember when Star Wars films were events. Like, the World Cup's going on right now. A new Star Wars movie felt like the World Cup. It felt like the world was anticipating it. And this movie felt very similar.
For sure. And I want to clarify, Phantom Menace Episode 1 did eclipse that $1 billion. So it did have Spider-Man beat. But that 811 million and then some with everything else, that's probably a close second for all the movies that we've done.
For a superhero movie.
Yeah.
Like, it's not what like, people are not going to understand that back then, because back then superhero movies did not do that. They were considered box office death. This rocked the world and started a whole trend. I mean, now those Marvel movies do that and whatever. Yep. Before we dive into the blow-by-blow, too, I want to talk about Sam Raimi a little bit.
Okay.
Are you guys, either one of you, fans of Sam Raimi prior to this? Or, I mean, I guess prior to this you wouldn't have been, but thinking of Sam Raimi, are you guys big fans of his directorial, like, style?
I like some of the new stuff he's done.
Yeah.
So
it wouldn't be fair for me to say that I was a fan, or I now am a fan. I'm not as familiar as you probably are, Chase.
Yeah, when I was a kid, my brother was a big Evil Dead fan, which, you know, Sam Raimi is known, for anybody that doesn't know, I mean, or hasn't seen Evil Dead or some of his other stuff. He's a master of horror. He is also a master of horror comedy. I think he gets thrown into the horror bucket a lot, but he really revolutionized horror comedy in the way that he used certain techniques, like his camera work, his whoosh pans, and all that. In Evil Dead, there was like a POV shot that was considered revolutionary, and that's just because he was an independent filmmaker. He made Evil Dead on his own budget, and by that I mean he had like $50. Him and Bruce Campbell went out into a cabin in Tennessee and literally shot the whole thing indie style with a camera that he had rented. And to get some of these shots and pans, he nailed a camera to a 2x4. And just him and his brother, Ted Raimi, who's in a lot of movies that I think he's in Spider-Man a couple times, they did a lot of the shots themselves. And so a lot of what he does just comes straight from creativity. And he does that here in this film a lot. And you get the horror elements in this film. And it's toned down a lot because it is a family film. It is a superhero film. But the way that Sam Raimi treats this film is pretty impressive.
There's some scary moments, though. Like you say it's family, but there's some moments that were pretty, I don't know, pretty creepy, especially for a youngster. So you're not wrong in regards to those horror elements. He didn't fully hide away. They're there. You just gotta, understand the background.
And it's fair because he does make the Green Goblin very intimidating.
Yes.
And he does that really well, the way that he zooms in on him, the way that he creeps around and directs the Green Goblin. It is very Evil Dead, Deadite kind of thing, which the Green Goblin in the comic book is, a split personality, but Sam Raimi is almost a perfect director for this first film because he's able to add the comedy into it and the fun adventure style, but he gives you a serious tone at times when you need to be brought in. And he treats it more than just a superhero movie. And I didn't really notice that when I was a kid. Now I notice it.
Sam Raimi directed the shit out of Willem Dafoe, and he was actually very scary in this.
They were a great duo, and Willem Dafoe wanted to do he did 90% of his stunts, so they had to redesign the Green Goblin gear to fit him to where he can move better. So they redid a lot of that. So it's just them working together and having a vision, instead of just like, oh, well, it's in the script, we got to stick to the script. No, great directors will improvise on the fly with the talent that they have, and they'll bring out the best in their talent. And Willem Dafoe fucking crushes it in this.
I mean, he is really a legend. Willem Dafoe is fucking legendary actor. So I don't want to say they couldn't have found a better actor to play this, but maybe they couldn't.
I agree. No, I don't. There is nobody else. No.
Yeah.
No.
And speaking of better actors to play Spider-Man, which we're going to get into, when we get in the blow-by-blow, we'll talk about Tobey Maguire's performance, but they almost got Heath Ledger and Leonardo DiCaprio to play Spider-Man. That was some original picks. So think about Spider-Man.
Thank God that didn't happen.
Yeah, think about Spider-Man looking a little different at times.
I don't need to. I don't have to, Chase.
Well,
You can't make me.
what's worse, or that or Freddie Prinze Jr. because that was also one of their.
For Spider-Man?
Yeah, they were looking at Freddie
Oh,
Prinze Jr.
no. I would have. No, Freddie Prinze Jr. wouldn't have been. No. That's not terrible. What's terrible is Leonardo DiCaprio. That takes the cake. Like that's
Yeah.
an awful casting decision.
Yeah.
Wait, was
Very
that
bad.
was that in the works?
They were considered.
Okay.
They were considered,
know
but
that.
Tobey Maguire won out. That's who they went with.
Yeah.
But this was the litter that they were picking from, and Zach Braff was even mentioned too.
Interesting.
Scrubs was big, so he was a big star.
Zach, I don't hate Zach Braff, but I don't see him as a
He's
Peter
not
Parker.
Spider-Man.
No.
No.
Well,
Tobey Maguire was the right choice, and the only choice.
I agree, but let's see. Andrew, start us off. Where does this movie start and take place and begin?
Well, I do want to talk about the little lead-in scene or the introductory scene with Danny Elfman music in the background. You got the dark navy blue backdrop with the webs and the names interspersed in those web patterns. I don't know. To me, that was an iconic opening, one that I will always remember. It really was. It really was. But yeah, I remembered that as soon as it came on the screen. I was like, holy shit, here we go. We're going back. I remember this. I vividly remember it. But correct me if I'm wrong, the opening scene, isn't it Peter like running down the street trying to catch the bus? Isn't that essentially where we open up?
Yeah, and they kind of open up like comic book style because Peter narrates a lot in the comic, and that went down into the animated show too. And so they open it up very traditionally. It's Peter narrating his life, being like, "Who am I?" And then you see him kind of you kind of see who Peter Parker is. And remember, and I do have a lot of comic book knowledge because I read them as a kid and understood Spider-Man. He's portrayed very well in this opening, like kind of 30 minutes, because Peter in the comic book pre-Spider-Man was a complete nerd and outcast. He was bullied. He wasn't cool. He had no confidence to him at all. And Toby really does a good job of playing that kind of Spider-Man, where it's like he's in this beginning scene. You're like, oh, I wouldn't say loser because he's incredibly intelligent and probably going to make millions anyway. But he's like, just like you just feel for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's definitely kind of a loser, a loner, has very little friends. He's trying to catch this bus because they're on their way to a field trip, and he's running on the side, smacking his hands. You got all the people in the bus that are just like laughing at him and pointing. And then, of course, his love interest, his crush since fourth grade, Mary Jane Watson, yells at the bus driver to stop. Hey, let him on. And the bus driver's like, I was enjoying this, but all right, I'll let him on. And he gets on, and again, you see more. No one wants him to sit. Like, seat's taken. Get to the back.
Very, very Forrest Gump reference there.
Yes. He gets tripped as he's walking down the aisle. Like, he's a loser. He's a dork.
Do you want to talk about Kirsten Dunst?
Pretty well.
And do you want to talk about Kirsten Dunst since we just opened the scene with her and how?
Yeah, you might as well. What are your all thoughts on Kirsten Dunst in this movie? I'm curious.
I mean, when I was a kid, I thought she was gorgeous and eye-popping. And she is gorgeous in this movie.
She's very attractive. She's also just a very talented person. But in this movie specifically, I feel like she stole the hearts of many of us back in the day. And that holds up even on rewatch as of yesterday. So, yeah, she's awesome. And she's just really, in my opinion, she's just really hotness. And the perfect Mary Jane. Like, the love interest, you want people to be, looking up and pining for that. And I think they executed that well here with Kirsten Dunst.
She does look like the Mary Jane from the comic book. But this is the first difference I want to get to, because in the Spider-Man comic, his first love interest is Gwen Stacy. So that's where they change it. They cut that completely and go straight for this, which I get. Like, this is a movie. If I want a play-by-play of what actually happens with Spider-Man, I'll go read the comic books. It's the same thing. Yeah. But anyway, he's running down for this field trip. He gets on the bus. Where do we end up, Kyle?
So we end up at a field trip where they're going to some like, I don't know what, Colombia? Is it Colombia?
Yeah. It's Columbia.
New York University, Columbia, and they're going on a field trip to look at one of their like biology department or something, and they're looking at like one of their big, or not microscopes, microscopes that they have. So we're there. This is where we also get introduced to Harry
Old Harry.
Osborn.
Yep.
Old Harry and his father, Norman Osborn, who they have quite the at the beginning kind of like you're kind of like, oh, it's not an estranged father and son, but it's kind of like father wants to care more, but he's busy. And he's very wealthy. Like he owns his own company. Like
I mean, what kind of car did they show up to?
It was a yeah. He didn't want to get pulled up in the Rolls. It was a Rolls Royce. So a very, 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 and it's an old Rolls Royce as well. So a very expensive old car. And I don't know when that was from. It was probably from the freaking 50s, I think. I was going to correct me though, but I believe it's quite old.
And he's owning one of these in New York too. So like keep that in mind. Makes it even more expensive.
Well, then you'll also see what you would call it, you'll see the wealth on display when they do the shots of a certain building in New York. So I think Andrew might know what building it is. I certainly don't, but it's essentially like their apartment is like a mansion on top of a building. It's fucking sick. But you get off that this is a very wealthy family, and the son just wants to be normal. That's all. And the father's like, embrace who you are. This isn't bad. Like that kind of stuff. But you can also tell the father's like not really proud of his son.
Yes.
And that's going to be a big theme throughout this movie. So we get from there into the actual facility, and you can tell Peter and Harry are both getting bullied by Mary Jane's father. By Mary Jane's boyfriend.
I mean, he's old enough to be a father. Let's keep in mind, like these kids are supposed to be in high school, and they all look like they're in their 30s.
They look like they do. They
out of college.
Yeah, Flash Thompson, a major comic book character, but he's presented as like what you would say a jock, but almost an emo jock.
Yeah, I would agree.
He's also on the gas too. This dude is huge.
Yeah, he's big. This guy is like a big dude, and he definitely does not look like he is a high schooler. He looks like a grown man dating a high schooler, which is creepy as fuck. But you can tell they're getting bullied. Peter's trying to like do his thing and actually be interested and stuff, and then they just keep on like messing with him. But while this is happening, they're kind of explaining that they have like they're going over different spider species that they have, and there's nothing to my knowledge that like showcases that they're trying to like make new species of spiders, but like rather identify their abilities. And they're like looking around and like get to the point where they're looking for one of them, and they're like, oh well, can't find that one. Moving on. And it's like one of these like rare spiders is out of its containment, but like everybody's just like, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, it's okay. It's all right.
And I was kind of like, it took me out of it for a second, but it was very evident while we were, me and Erica were watching this, is like, you really like, this is the point where you're really gonna have to start suspending your disbelief in a comic book. Like everything up to this point was very normal kind of stuff. This is the point where Peter gets his powers. So he's trying to take a picture of Mary Jane, and he's like, can I get a picture of you as a school paper? Oh my gosh. Just want to take a picture of you, by the way. You can go over the instances in which Peter's kind of creepy in this movie as well. It happens a number of times. This is one of them, where he's just kind of like, I just want to get a picture for the school paper. Everything. She like, let's make it, you're beautiful. She's like, well, don't make me look bad. And he goes, that'd be impossible. I was like, okay, yeah, cool, whatever. Whatever.
I will say it is creepy, but it's also like they do write it as like a child crush. Like Peter almost feels like he's like 10 with a crush on an older girl.
Here's the deal that bothered me about his interactions with MJ. They're fucking neighbors, and they've been neighbors for a long time.
Yeah.
But Peter acts like he's never spoken to her.
That's true.
And yet, like, and then she also kind of acts like she doesn't really know him. But like halfway through the movie, it's like they're family, and they've been, in contact with each families for years, and it's all second nature. But the build up here didn't make sense to me. I was like, y'all are neighbors. Act like it. I get you're a little mousy little scared boy who's afraid to step out of his own little bubble. But like, you know her. You see her every morning. whatever. That's just
No,
a
I
few
agree.
things
I
Yeah,
agree
yeah,
completely.
that's a great point.
I
too.
agree. I think that's something that it's hard to, when watching this movie again, that part is a little like confusing as to why they don't have more rapport, and
Yeah,
it takes you out of it just a little bit, not a lot,
just
but
a little
just
bit.
enough to be
Just
like,
a little,
like why,
yeah,
why?
yeah, yeah.
Um,
It
but
makes like when we get down the road, it makes some things not make sense too. Like let's be
yeah,
honest, like
For sure.
yes, fair.
so it's like
Um,
it's one of those things that a couple of dialogue changes would have went a long way.
yeah, no, that's totally fair.
I do want to point out.
Also,
Go ahead.
okay, you point. Okay, I was gonna say you talk about the rapport that MJ and Peter have, but the rapport that Peter and Harry have is weird. Like Harry's supposed to be his best friend, but I never got those vibes, which I guess is probably part of the comics. Harry didn't remain Peter's best friend forever. I'm pretty sure that got severed.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and two,
it-
I want to make mention too in the comic books because they're really going for it here in film. It doesn't always translate, but in the comic books, Peter's super introverted. And it's done in the comic books the same way it's done in this movie, where as the more he talks and becomes Spider-Man, it's his confidence coming out.
yeah.
Because especially in this scene, I don't know if you guys noticed. I did not notice this as a kid. Did you notice he struggled with the camera and taking the photo? And it was like really
yes,
blurry. He
uh-huh.
wasn't
I
very
did.
very confident in how he was taking the photo, and that's
Yeah.
going to come back into play later. And it's such a subtle thing that I didn't catch that made me appreciate some of the ways that they do a little too much here. It is a little hokey of how
Yeah.
introverted he is, because I was like, even the most introverted human being at the age of 18 is still going to have some outspoken personality because you have so many hormones going through your body. So it didn't make sense at how shut off he was, because he shouldn't have had any friends at all at this point. Harry's kind of normal. When we talk about James
he's a
Franco
sad
does
boy.
a pretty good job, and I think Harry's character is pretty well written for the most part because he's
Yeah,
dealing with.
I would
Yeah.
definitely say that
I think so.
there's a lot of dynamics that like make you feel something for how his character is written and also how James Franco acts him out. So I would definitely double down on that.
Because he's complicated. He's like, you can
He
tell
is.
he's kind of like a dick sometimes, but he's also like, you're like, I understand why you feel that way. And it's not like he does everything like, I felt like he was an 18-year-old in some of the stuff he was doing. So, but at this point too, while Peter's taking the photos, the rogue spider crawls down out of the vent shaft and bites him on the thumb. And
Yeah, which I mean, I'm just gonna go ahead. I have to do this. There is like no web building spider that is gonna go out of its way to go and bite somebody. That I mean, like, it doesn't make any fucking sense.
no.
What about a
That's it.
genetically modified web building spider, Kyle?
But this is where we have to again have to suspend our disbelief.
Yeah.
You must, if you're going to watch any of these movies, like you have to.
Right.
But
And
I have to call that out. It doesn't make any fucking
and
sense.
especially because it's like it's already in the comic book, so they have to put it in the movie. So like I give the movie a pass just because like that's the source material you're using. In the comic book, it's like to Kyle's point, it is ridiculous. Because it happens the same way in the comic. Is like it lands on him and immediately bites him. No spider is doing that unless it's provoked. But moving on. So he gets bit, right? And then what happens next, Kyle? After he gets bit, he doesn't even freak out much. He's just like, ow. And sees the spider crawling away.
Yeah, I don't think he even knows that he got bit. Like, I think he knows he got bit. Like, he kind of just like, whatever. It's just a spider.
It's just
like,
a colorful spider, and it's
genetically mutated that was on display and broke
maybe
out
I
to
should
Columbia
tell somebody.
University.
Maybe I should tell the chaperone that's really struggling and
chaperone.
hates his life.
Yeah, he's not a chaperone. He's a teacher. Because remember, he goes like, "I will fail you." Like, find out.
He was
find out,
kind of
find out, I will
funny.
fail you.
I
He was
just
a little prick.
I love the way he went over there and said, "You were talking during that whole lady's presentation, so let's go talk about how we listen."
Talk about how we listen.
And then he was like, now I see why you were kicked out of all those private schools. Well, we do things differently here at public school, Harry.
And
So
and that's a good point we need to make up too, is because Harry was trying to schmooze Mary Jane Watson using Peter's knowledge.
Peter's words.
Yeah,
and knowledge.
Peter was telling Harry, like, wow, this is the coolest telescope. These are this, that, and the other. He gives him all these scientific facts. Harry turns around to use those facts against Peter in front of Mary Jane Watson, which just shows that he's willing to sell out anybody for himself, you know? So it gives you that kind of like layer, even though it feels that way of, oh, it's just harmless flirting. It's not. He's legitimately knows that Peter loves Mary Jane. But so
and he even like mentioned it like 5 minutes prior, like, hey man, go talk to her. She's right there. And then he sneaks in like a little weasel and fucking steals Peter's thunder. That's not what best friends do. So
no, it's really upsetting when he does that too, because it's like, and then again, this movie does a really good job of making you feel things and making you feel for Peter Parker and where he's at. And it's like, it's just so fucking sad. His one friend, quote unquote friend, like can't even be trusted to like spit game for him. It just takes the shit he told him.
Yeah, be a wingman, dude. Like, help him out. Don't just steal his fucking girl, you know?
Yeah.
Well, anyways, he gets bit, and I think, you know, we fast forward back home to Peter's house in Queens, where Aunt May and Uncle Ben live, who are essentially his pseudo-parents. They're expecting him home. They're going to have a nice dinner, but he comes in and he goes straight up to his room because he's ill.
Yeah, he does get sick. Did you guys realize like what Aunt May and Uncle Ben say to him when he's going up and what he retorts with? He was like, no. They're like,
he had a bite. Yeah, like
he's like, no, you want a bite? He's like, I just had a bite.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, so I thought that was. I was like, wow, that's clever. I did not catch that. Very clever.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I caught it this time around too. I put it in my notes. Yeah. I'm glad you brought it up because in two, like that would go back to the point that we made earlier where he knew he got bitten. So it was like, why didn't you tell somebody? And especially now that you're feeling sick, you would think that you would have the wherewithal to be like, oh, I got bit by this spider and now I'm feeling really ill. I probably should tell somebody or go to the hospital. I don't know.
Yeah. I remember mentioning to Erica, like, this is on par for a real spider bite, depending on who you get bit by.
Yeah.
Which one you get bit by.
Recluse.
Like,
brown recluse.
You're going to start having some fever symptoms, and all of a sudden you're not going to be feeling so good, and then you're going to go to sleep. You're not going to wake up.
So, go to the hospital. This is a PSA for everyone out there. It is spider season. If you get bit by a spider and you start feeling these types of symptoms, call an ambulance. Don't wait on this. You will lose a limb or you will die. You will die. But yeah, he goes up into his room. I love how we're speeding along here. This is like 10 minutes into the movie, and he's already bitten by the spider, and he's already starting to feel the effects, and he's getting woozy.
I love the little dream sequence, like hallucination that he has. He kind of falls to the floor, pulls like up his jacket and his blanket, and like zonks out. And then we get that psychedelic animation of his DNA being altered by the spider bites. Little pieces get taken out and reintroduced with like blue and red pieces, which are supposed to indicate that he's being genetically modified now. And then he wakes up, and actually, I don't think we get to that scene just yet. I think that we do a little aside to.
We go to Norman Osborn, yeah.
Yep. And we don't exactly know Peter's fate just yet, but we go to Norman Osborn. This was the scene where he has the talk with the general, and he's learning that they're going to lose the funding, and it's going to go to West Aerospace Industries or whatever, and. It's not good because if they lose that funding, Oscorp is literally going to go completely under.
Right. And he's working.
I don't know if
he's working on.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say he's working on super soldier serum is basically what he's working on, and it's kind of gone awry in testing from the dialogue that we get between him and the general. So his this whole process has caused the military to kind of back out or like get cold feet. And I think he mentions that there's several other people that are auctioning off for that weapons contract. Kyle, you could probably speak better about how these things work. I don't know if they did it justice in this film, but they're kind of like trying to build this infrastructure of the military trying to work with Oscorp and what he's working on is not necessarily fitting what they want to do.
No, but this is one piece that's actually I was watching this and I was like, yeah, this is actually pretty accurate. I do follow quite a bit of like defense industry stuff and all that good stuff. And this is a lot of times, this is how this kind of stuff goes. Like there's a really novel idea. The military is looking for they're looking for some niche product to find that's going to help them overcome an obstacle or be able to deliver some kind of payload in a different way. And on paper, it looks great. It's like, yeah, this is awesome, cool. And then you go to apply it, and there's setbacks, there's funding mishaps, there's accidents, the budget overruns, which is like the biggest thing, like supply chain issues, numerous things like that. So, like my prime example is there's a guy from the UK who was I think, a former Royal Marine, and he actually made a jetpack. Like it's real. It goes on. There's a jetpack on your back, and you have two arm jetpacks as well. And it's like a jet turbine. Like it uses some kind of interesting fuel like delivery system, and you're able to like stay up in the air and like fly at like, I don't even know how fast, like really fast, like 50, 60 miles an hour, something like that, something crazy. And he was doing like, I mean, like I remember when I started watching him in like 2018, 2019. And I think the last I saw was a couple years ago, and I can't find anything anymore. But he was like, the last big thing I saw was him and a bunch of like, Marines were like, they did like a demonstration on an aircraft carrier, and they were like very much, it fits in very well with this. We're focusing on giving the military this, and then with this we're going to give them this too. And that's why that whole scene like really kind of shapes up to be a very realistic, not that we're trying to look for that in this, but like it helps add some
believability.
Yeah, it's exactly, some gravity to it. It's a very real thing that this, like, he's at that point where this guy that I'm talking about is now, where Norman is like, he's like, all right, I have it, like, we're ready to go, like, let's go. And the military is like, yeah, I don't know though, I don't know if this is exactly what we want.
Dr. Strom, who is his like top assistant, is like, the serum is not ready for human testing. And Norman's like, yes, it is. Let's go. And the military is like, wait, what? It's not ready? What do you mean? How long? Strom's like, we need to go back to the drawing board. Probably going to take about 2 months to get back to where we need to. And they're like, okay, well, that's not enough time for us. If you don't get this figured out within a week, we're going to Quest. Sorry, suckers. And, Norman doesn't like that, obviously, because, like I said, if he loses that funding, his company goes belly up. So They go into the main lab, and Norman's like, this is going to work. We're ready to do it on human testing. I'm going to go into the chamber. Dr. Strom, you put that serum in and fucking pump me full of the entire vial. And Strom's like, no, we can't. No, Norman, he's like, do it. And he does it. And Kyle, you'd be good at explaining what happens here. What happens when Norman gets injected here?
Yeah, so he goes into a gas chamber, effectively.
Yep.
And he's getting bolted down, which is already interesting that they already know that this is what they have to do when giving this serum. And it's administered like in like I don't want to say aerosolized form, but like definitely vaporized form.
Definitely going into the pores of the skin kind of thing.
Yeah.
Skin getting breathed in, whatever. I don't know how that would even begin to work at any kind of level, but regardless, this is how it's delivered. And he's in a fucking gas chamber, and they just go pumping it full of gas, and it's green too, like this noxious looking green gas, and it's very, like, it looks unctuous. It looks like he's like already starting to struggle. It clouds up with gas, and then the gas clears out. He pushes the emergency, Dr. Strom does, and it clears out all of the gas in the chamber. And then Dr. Strom goes into the chamber to try to look and make sure he's okay, because he thinks he's dead. And then Norman wakes up and he goes, and what does he say? Something about
back to formula.
Yeah, he said formula. He takes him by the throat and he throws him into some kind of like I don't know, technology thing.
It's like
the glass and metal and all sorts of
computers,
shit.
Electronics.
And he doesn't just throw him; his body flies at like miles per hour. Clearly, the serum gave Norman some super strength, so it wasn't just a gentle push. He was literally thrown probably 20 feet through the air into, like I said, a collection of glass, metal, and whatever. It didn't hate to ruin it, but it didn't. That didn't end well for Dr. Strom there.
No,
it did not.
and we get this lasting
that was
image
that.
of Norman Osborn doing kind of the glider hang, but he jumps up on a ledge, and you see this like evil look in his face. Well delivered by Willem Dafoe. This scared me as a kid.
Willem Dafoe can play a masterful villain. I mean, his
facial expressions are really good, and the way he already has that naturally like kind of razor sharp teeth. You know, he has a specific look to him, and I think that plays right here. But you mentioned the green, Kyle. I'm going to go ahead and mention this now so we don't have to keep like talking about it throughout the film. I didn't notice this with Sam Raimi and the color palette until now, and it's well done. The scenes with Norman Osborn, they make very muted colors with green tones. And then the scenes with Peter, they do really earthy tones and red and blue shadowing.
Yep.
And they do that from the beginning to the end. And then we'll get later down the road to where it all collides together. But the color palette and the spacing here was very well thought out. And the way that he filmed it, you know, it wasn't just like a, here's scene, put camera here. Everything he did seemed to make sense, and I want to applaud him for that. And especially in this scene where you see it's very muted and cold and dark, and then the green starts filling the space, so it's pulling out the demon inside Norman Osborn. So I really appreciated that. The scene was really well done, even though you do have to suspend your disbelief for the serum, but we're in a comic book movie too, so all kinds of shit's going to happen. But now we get to Peter, right, Andrew?
Yeah.
Yes.
He wakes back up in his room. I believe he woke up on the floor. He's like, where am I?
It's like the next day.
Yeah, literally the next day. His Aunt May and Uncle Ben didn't care to go in and check on him.
At all.
He's just lying there on the floor, but he wakes up and he goes to grab his glasses, and he finds that he has perfect 20/20 vision. I love the little scene they had where the camera angle was like from behind his head, the mirror was in front. He put the glasses on and everything was blurry. He takes them off, and then he can see himself clearly in the mirror across the way. And he does it like 3 or 4 times. And he's like, huh, that's weird. I can see now. And then he looks at himself in the mirror, and he's kind of shredded. He's got some muscles. He's got a 6-pack.
But
his body prior.
I will say this with
we did see his body prior. Before he went down, he grabs the
blanket.
He grabs the blanket off, and it just shows him he's just like a
scrawny
mini.
Yeah.
Like,
it was one of those things that I guess I missed, but I just based off his character prior, I didn't think that he was ripped or had muscles or any type of physique whatsoever.
What I love too is they didn't make him like overly muscular. Like this looked realistic. Like if Peter just started working out and this was 8 months down. It wasn't
push-ups and pull-ups on a daily basis.
It was natural to his body. It wasn't like he went down and came up and he was like a bodybuilder. It was like very believable in the context of his genes have been altered and now he's stronger. Like Peter could put a shirt on and no one knows he's that ripped underneath or that strong. They're not going to notice that change.
No, it was very believable. You could very much tell a lot of the stuff that he was doing was probably just calisthenics.
Mm-hmm.
That was probably it, which is very much how Spider-Man would look and does look in most medias. He's not freaking ripped. He's in a very good, very lean shape.
He's cut, but he's not like he's not
huge.
Beast. He doesn't have Goku delts. You know, he's not.
No, he does not.
He doesn't have the huge lats where he can't like bend over and pick things up, and that kind of fits the Spider-Man character. He's acrobatic. He's a gymnast. He has a gymnast body.
Beyond that, he's just an ordinary person, and there's none of that sexualization and fetishization of body image whatsoever with Spider-Man.
Right.
But it actually fits into the story though here. Like it's like you can like he's a nerd. You need to be able to see that he's like capable in some way of doing what he's doing. It's not like in Thor where we already know he's a god, right? It's not like in Superman where we already know he's a freaking alien. It's not like these where it's like there's a huge transformation that we need to see. It actually just makes sense for the story. So we'll move on.
So moving on. So he runs downstairs now. He's feeling absolutely better.
Feeling good.
And Uncle Ben's still sitting where he was. I don't think he left that seat on the kitchen table. And him and Uncle Ben have this moment. Uncle Ben's like, hey, don't be late for painting the kitchen tonight. And he's like, don't start without me. And he's like, don't start up with me. They have that kind of cool moment. And then he runs out the door, and Uncle Ben's like, yeah, teenagers' hormones. And then Peter's kind of feeling good, and he's realized he's missed the bus again. And he's running after the bus, so we get that kind of same scene. Only this time he reaches out for the bus to try to like pat on it, and there's like a banner, like how a high school would put a banner on their football team's bus and whatnot, and he pulls it off with his hand, and he notices his
without
hand.
he
Without
didn't
grabbing onto
Yeah,
it.
like he realizes that his hand has kind of a sticky adhesive to it. And speeding along here because we're kind of a little bit behind. Peter he gets to school, and he gets more interaction with Flash Thompson. And there's a scene where they're in the cafeteria, and Mary Jane slips and falls with her tray, and everything goes slow motion, so they're showing Peter's spider sense. And
yes, but can we pause real quick? I'm not trying to get too granular, but how did they do that? Because that was not like, I don't think that was 80 yard in. Do you? Like, it looked real when he caught all that stuff.
It was. I was going to say the practical effect here was they took 156 takes. Tobey Maguire actually caught the tray and all the items on it. This is Sam Raimi's special right here. He loves doing everything in camera. Now, I do know Sony made him do a lot of CGI in this film. We'll get to that. But this was practical. It took 16 hours to pull off. But everything you see with Kirsten Dunst flying in the air and Peter catching the tray and all the items of food was done by Tobey Maguire himself. So bravo, Tobey.
Yep. Not going to be done today. They're not doing that today. That's too much time to waste.
16 hours.
Doesn't serve a purpose.
16 hours, though, at that point, I'm like, can we just CGI this?
Yeah, but that's a whole day of shooting and then some. Like,
yeah, on a big.
I'm sorry, but like that's
big budget
movie. Like to their defense, like there are probably other things that we could do besides that.
But it's an iconic scene, though. A lot of people remember that scene. But he catches the tray and all the stuff in it, and Mary's like, "Oh, how did you do that?" She starts noticing. He starts noticing, and then at some point he throws the tray backwards because he finds he has a web on the tray, and he can't get rid of the web. And he throws the tray, and it hits Flash Thompson and gets food all over him. Peter quickly gets up, and he's dragging the tray behind him because he doesn't know how to release the web. And everyone's just like, kind of like, Peter, you're such a weirdo and a loser. And they're like, no one's like, oh, cool, he can shoot fucking webs and hit Flash Thompson the fucking head with a tray. They're making fun of him. And as he's carrying the tray out, he ends up in the high school hallway, and Flash Thompson basically goes to punch him, and the spider like sense in him goes off, and he flips over Flash Thompson. They end up getting into a fight, long story short, and he ends up beating the shit out of Flash Thompson. And this is when Peter, he's kind of got a smile on his face, but everyone in the room is like, you freak, what up? Instead of being like, holy shit, Peter, what was that? They're like, oh, you freak, you weirdo. We knew you were weird. Like, why would you beat up the bully like that? Oh, my God. And Mary Jane and Harry have this little conversation, and Peter runs off. And so he runs off, and now we get this moment, and it's a montage, and we'll kind of briefly go through it, but this moment where Peter's like trying to figure out his powers. He's jumping from building to building.
Climbing walls.
When he climbs the walls, it goes CG, and this is some of the worst CG I've seen in a while. It's awful.
It's pretty bad.
It's not the only time in this movie. I want to talk about the CG now so we can just get it out of the way. The CG in this movie, when it does hit, it does not hold up at all. It's terrible. There's just no need to even go into it. It is early level CG. They do a lot in camera and a lot of practical effects that all still kind of look really good. But the balancing here and the bad CG...
It didn't bother me at all. The jumping was a little egregious, but it happened so quick that it didn't...
Yeah, they didn't dwell on it. They didn't spend a whole lot of time on it. If they had, I would be more in your camp, Chase, where it's like, I don't... Like, why are we doing this when we know it looks bad? But I don't think it really kind of took me out of it to the point where I was like, shit, this is fucked.
Yeah.
Not that that's what you're saying. I'm just...
Yeah,
I
I
don't
get
want
you.
some of our listeners to kind of get this and be like, oh shit. This
I'm not putting the whole movie down for this, but it did take me out for this second. I do want to talk about this because this scene wraps up when Peter learns to shoot his web. We got to talk about that because in the comic
so
books,
good.
Peter makes his own web shooters, right?
Web shooting, because he's a genius. He's a little genius, and
Yeah.
he can create inventions like that.
So
and yeah,
I love what Sam Raimi talks about here. So they made web shooters for this movie, and they went back and reshot some of this. So it could actually go
Sick.
into why they used the CGI, because they had to reshoot so much of this particular scene, because Sam wanted to go back to an earlier script where the web powers were already there. Like, he inherited spider powers, because Sam, in a logical standpoint, was like, what's more believable in this scenario? He got bit by a spider and inherited all the genetic spider traits and qualities, or this 16, 17-year-old just builds this adhesive that is not known by anybody and it's unrealistic. He's like, which one
Yep.
are we going to think about? And he's like, I know the comic book says he built these adhesive, I don't even know what you call it, but like this unrealistic technology. And he's like, I believe it's more believable for the audience that he just got web powers, And I agree 1,000%, even though I do like the fact that, like, in the later movies, he invents the web shooters. But in this, it just makes way more sense for what we're trying to
It
do.
does, and we don't have to spend time wasting exposition to talk about it or do anything. And it would make us go like, okay, well, we have to believe this now. If we're believing this and all these scientific details of this, how the fuck are we supposed to sit here and believe this aspect of it too? It just, like, I agree 1,000%. Like, that was such a good, simple decision to keep it simple.
Yeah, and he learns to shoot it, and he falls on his face because they're still showing that he's learning his powers. But we cut from there, and what's next, Andrew? After Peter runs around for a little bit,
he gets home and it's late at night, and he realizes he forgot to get home to help his Uncle Ben paint the kitchen. They've left him some food in the freezer or the fridge. You can heat up in the oven, and he's like, "Ah, shit! They really must think something's wrong with me. Oh no, God, whatever. I'm gonna go outside and stare off into the night sky." And he hears Mary Jane's father yelling. He's drunk as shit. It's really abusive. He goes out back, and then they kind of have a little moment. Again, this conversation felt like a conversation that people have when they've known each other for a very long time. Maybe there are certain societal or social structures that didn't allow MJ to talk to Peter in this tone or with this familiarity previously. But this is where we finally see that these two have known each other for quite some time. But yet there's still this weird separation that
Peter doesn't know how to open up to her. Peter doesn't know how to talk.
He might be slightly autistic,
I knew there was going to be a moment in this episode where Andrew was going to bring that up. I knew it, and I was like timing it. I was like, at what point is Andrew going to talk about someone having autism?
He might be on the spectrum just a little bit. He's just socially awkward. But anyways, they have a little heart-to-hearts, and I think this is where, like, Peter asks, like, wait, what are you going to do after you graduate? And she's like, I'm going to go into the city and act. Yada, yada, yada. Cool, neat. And then, cap it off, Flash Thompson shows up in some shiny new convertible on the street and honks his horn. And she's like, God, by Peter, oh my God, your car's beautiful. And then she hops in and they drive away. And this is where Peter gets inspired to start looking for cars. And he's looking at, some of these prices for what he was looking at were pretty good for 2002. I wish we still had that.
But he was looking at a fucking, like, original Corvette that was listed for $3,000. My ass.
Yeah, I thought you'd have something to say about that. An
original Corvette for $3,000 is going to be a shit heap or won't even run. Those cars, if they're like actually running well, I don't know what they're going for now, but back then I don't think you could have got one for less than 10 or 15K if it was actually running.
Yeah.
Be so fucking for real with me. Fucking doofus.
Well, all he needs is 3,000. Maybe the owner is just like trying to get rid of it because it's cursed or something, or there's a dead body in the trunk. But Peter ends up, speeding along here. He ends up like working on like a costume, and he's gonna go to a wrestling, like I don't. Would you call it wrestling? Would you call it like it's almost like a gladiator competition, where if you
it's supposed to be wrestling. I think they called it like it was the NYWL, New York Wrestling League, I'd imagine.
and
But like
they pay $3,000 if you come in and beat their professional, which happens to be Bonesaw. Yeah, Randy
Savage. Macho Man. Randy Savage
the
is here.
cream of the crop.
He's something going to get the cream of the crop.
Because I did not remember his cameo when it first came out. I
remembered that most over everything else in this movie.
No, I don't know why I didn't remember it, but to hear that voice, I was like, "Holy shit, that's the Macho Man!" I was so excited.
And let's just say, Macho Man for this movie was on the gas. My God, he was
perfect. Through his mind. He was coked out of his coked and juiced the fuck up.
Yeah.
His face and body was so red from the steroids and the fucking cocaine.
The high blood pressure.
Jesus Christ.
That's why he died 9 years later. Tragically. On the road.
From a heart attack.
Yeah, on the road driving his Jeep. Yep.
Also, did you all catch the other cameo? I would imagine you did here, Chase. The ring announcer.
I do want to talk about that too, because the Evil Dead fans, Bruce Campbell is in every Sam Raimi movie that you're gonna ever see. But Bruce Campbell, legendary independent film actor, funny ass human being, plays the ring announcer here, and actually is responsible for Spider-Man getting his name, right, Andrew? So he's actually a pivotal character in this film.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because Peter comes out and he's got his costume on and he's the next one up, and it's so funny because the guy that went before him just gets his legs broken in and he gets thrown out of the ring. And as Peter's like walking to like the ramp for his entrance, you just see the guy getting rolled out on a stretcher. He's like, "I can't feel my legs. Oh my God, my legs!" Which is really this scene was really funny and
hilarious.
And he's like, "All right. Next up, and what you got a name, kid?" And he's like,
the human spider.
He's like, "The human spider, that's it? That's lame. Oh my God." And he changes it. He's like, "The amazing Spider-Man." And I was like, hell yeah, Bruce, you gave him his name. I love it. And so he comes to the ring, and then all of a sudden the cage comes down. He's like, "I didn't order a cage match." And he's like, and the fans here are just rabid. They're like Knicks fans right now. They're just like, "Cage!" And they start throwing popcorn and shit into the ring and booing and screaming.
They've seen this Bonesaw dude like just destroy every single competitor who's walked into the ring for I don't know how long, but he has literally but physically accosted every person. Yes. Yeah, so they see this fucking dorky, skinny kid, assumingly he's a kid. They can't really see him. He's got his mask off, but this dorky, skinny, 5'10", 5'11" competitor. And it's like, what? Are you kidding me? Stuck in this cage. They're like, "Oh shit, yeah, we're gonna see some more blood. Let's go. But
we're gonna see a lot of blood, and with this kid,
we didn't really talk about the fight that he had with Flash in the hallway and all of the super Spidey reflexes he has.
Yeah, we mentioned it. Yeah,
he mentioned it, but he's more than capable of going up against Bonesaw here.
Yeah, he doesn't know it. He's also like his powers are unhoned now, so he's just kind of like just figuring them out. So he does like just start, and the cage comes down, which is actually a benefit to him, which I don't think he realizes.
Sure. Oh yeah.
So
he can do his little spider shit up in the corner.
So he does a flip and like holds on to the cage, and he's like, "Get down there." And he's like, "That's a nice costume. Did your husband make it for you?" And this is the first like sarcastic Spider-Man tone. So this is a big thing in the comic books. It's also a big thing in the animated series. It's Spider-Man is a snarky asshole when
he's a smart, sarcastic little shit.
Yeah, when he gets
funny.
And when he gets his confidence, it's just because he's so smart that he is this smart ass. And
what did you say to him? And when he gets right in the ring, Chase, he's like, "That's a nice costume. Did your husband get it for you?"
Yeah, did your husband make that for you? So
that's so good.
And he's like, there's not enough of that in this movie. I will say that.
No, there needs. I agree, 1,000% agree. I think it's a missed opportunity because Tobey Maguire is really good at delivering those lines.
Yeah. When he delivers them, and I think he makes more in the second movie, which I guess if you want to say, oh, as the movies go on, he gets more confidence, but he makes the first one here, and we just needed more of that, and we needed better lines.
Yep.
Like they don't give him the best lines to deliver. I think Andrew Garfield did the best of delivering these snarky lines, although his
I do
Spider-Man
agree with that.
was written very weird. Like Kyle always talks about, sometimes the writing brings it down a notch.
Yep.
But that is Spider-Man's character. He is a snarky asshole, and we don't get enough snarky asshole, but it is delivered perfectly, like you said, Kyle, by Tobey Maguire. He delivers this line perfectly. But they get into
It's so good.
this tussle. Long story short, after Bonesaw gets a chair and just breaks the chair over him a few times, he ends up kicking him into the cage and knocking him unconscious. It kind of goes pretty quick, and so he ends up winning. Andrew, he ends up winning, and what happens after he wins?
Well, before we get into that, just because I want to set up what is to come, Peter, before he got to his wrestling match, was dropped off by his
that's
Uncle
right.
Ben.
We totally forgot about
outside.
this.
That's okay. We'll talk about it right now. They're driving from Queens into like Bryant Park area. I think he's getting dropped off right at the New York Public Library. That's a good hike. But right when they pull up, Uncle Ben's like, I want to talk to you about something. My initial thought was like, dude, why didn't you talk to him on like the 30-minute ride over? Like you had all that time to ask Peter what's going on in his life, but you chose to pop that question.
Well,
second you pull up.
I got an idea. They were listening to "Bat Out of Hell," the Meatloaf album, and he didn't want to interrupt that, which is important. So that's what happened.
I think they were actually listening to the Smiths, but they seem like
I think they were listening to.
Band,
I think they were listening to the Mamas and the Papas. I think.
Oh, you know what? Uncle Ben really would have. He would have been a fan of that. But I do think Peter would have been a fan of the Smiths.
I also think Uncle Ben would have been listening to Creed too at the same time. Like, there's a couple of like different like routes we could have went.
Well, anyways, Uncle Ben's just trying to get a read on what's going on with Peter. At this moment, he's discovering all of his powers. He's barely home. He's not very talkative. There's a lot that he's discovering, and he doesn't know who to talk to about. Probably doesn't want to tell anyone because it's kind of weird. And essentially what it boils down to is Uncle Ben's just like, hey, you can talk to me. And Peter like lashes out. He's like, you're not my father. Stop trying to be. That's what he says to him. And Uncle Ben's like, all right, I'll see you here at 10 o'clock. And he gets out. And so going back to where we were, Peter just won this wrestling match. He's promised $3,000. He goes to collect his check or whatever. And the dude who's running the event gives him $100 because what was his shitty reasoning?
He pinned
Why
him.
didn't he give him the full 3,000?
He pinned him in two, and it said for 3 minutes, and you're lucky to get that. Yep. So he didn't last the 3 minutes, air quotes there. He pinned him in 2 minutes, and therefore it null and voids the contract.
What a bunch of bullshit! Just some cheap asshole trying to not.
Yeah, but he should have received. He should have received $2,000 though.
Yes, exactly.
That doesn't make any sense. So this leads to like a pivotal that really achieves him because he's like, I got to get this car to get the girl. He's a teenager. That's what I give a shit about. Got to get the car to get the girl. So he walks out, and then who walks in next but a criminal who sticks up the
Booker,
the showrunner, the Booker, and he just points a gun right at him and says, fill it up, and pistol whips him. And then after that happens, he's running towards the elevator, and Peter steps aside. He steps aside, and then the Booker runs up to him after the criminal gets away, and the criminal does say, he goes, thanks, man. After it gets in, this will be a pivotal moment, the whole movie. Mm-hmm. And the showrunner goes, why didn't you stop him? He's like, because what we didn't say was before he sent Peter off, he's like, what did he say, Andrew? He said,
so
that's my problem.
Peter was like, I need that money. And he was like, I don't understand why that's my problem, or something along those lines.
Remind me again why that's my problem.
Yeah, remind me again why that's my problem. And then so Peter gets to deliver that same line to him when he's like, why didn't you stop him? He was getting away with my money. And he was like, remind me why that's my problem, which is It's not
It's a great comeback.
and it's also not like you don't feel like, oh, Peter, you should have stopped him, because you're like, fuck that Booker, yeah, fuck him. Like it's a well done set. I know it's in the comics, but it's a well done setup, because you're like, yeah, why would you stop somebody from robbing him? He deserves to be robbed. He deserves what he's getting.
But this goes into like what
the
is
butterfly
justice,
effect. Yeah, butterfly effect. Sometimes even those actions you have to put above your own needs or your own selfish intent, because the guy gets away and hijacks Uncle Ben and shoots him and kills him. Yep. So Peter gets there, long story short, sees Uncle Ben die in front of him. He's filled with rage. He starts following the car. We get more CGI. Starts following the car with his web swinging in angry fashion now. The police are also following the car, and it's Uncle Ben's car, and I know probably neither one of you caught the reference. Kyle, did you catch the reference on the car?
No.
So the car was a Delta. It's the same car from Evil Dead.
Oh, yes. An Oldsmobile?
Yeah, old Delta. And that's Uncle Ben's car was the Delta from Evil Dead. Didn't catch it until this watch through now. And I was like,
weird.
Yeah, so
weird.
So Peter corners him eventually. He runs up into like some sort of construction site. The guy runs up some stairs. They get into this like cat and mouse kind of game, and then Peter ends up confronting him and pulling off his mask, and finds out it's the guy that he let go, and he's immediately ashamed, and the guy tries to grab the gun and shoot Peter. He breaks his arm, and the guy falls.
Peter breaks his arm. He trips on his own volition and falls in the window and dies. So Spider-Man never actually, that's something I like about this first movie, he never hands-on kills somebody, but he doesn't save people either, which I do. I'm like, that's an interesting moral standpoint to have. Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah, because that's a big superhero thing, is they don't kill. No. That was a big Batman thing, but in this case, it's like, well, shit happens, and like he kind of just walks away, and he meets up with Aunt May, and they're both just kind of distraught, and then it cuts forward, and where do we cut to now, Andrew? After Uncle Ben's passing.
Oh, I have it written down. Give me a second.
Isn't it graduation?
Yes. Yeah. It's graduation. So Kyle, take it from here. It's graduation.
So they're at graduation, and from the high school, that is. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, like, what are you doing next? Oh, this is great. Oh, you and Harry. Oh my gosh, you and Harry are going to be roommates next year. This is great. Oh my God. And this is kind of like where we see the more of the estrangement between Norman and Harry, that you can definitely tell Norman is much prouder of Peter for whatever reason. We don't necessarily know why.
The science award, that's great.
Oh, that's right, the science award. Yes, that's right.
And then he looks at Harry and he's like, well, you made it. I can't say that I'm not surprised that you graduated high school. Yeah. And you find out Harry's been kicked out of a bunch of private schools too, so maybe Norman's on his last leg with him. So I mean, they do kind of tell you some stuff. It's like there is a strained relationship there, but it's not like Norman's not trying to be proud of Harry. He's faking a lot of it. And with Peter, he's like, wow, Peter, my God, you're the son I never had.
Yes, exactly. There's a lot of that going on, and it is very I don't know what the right word is. Like, it adds a lot of dynamics to it, but it's also kind of predictable. Yeah. Like, you're kind of like, oh, this is the direction it's going in now. He's got daddy issues.
Well, in this movie, and I'm glad you brought that up, Kyle, because this is a movie about father figures, because we have the moral father figure in Uncle Ben, who's passed away now, and now we have Harry's estranged relationship with his dad. I mean, they play with those dynamics all throughout this movie, and it's always going to be an undertone of like, Peter can just easily go get the corrupt attention of Harry's dad, but he's trying to find his own way, which makes Harry's dad, Norman, respect him even more. Because is there one point where Peter loses his job and Norman offers him a job? He's like, no, thank you. I want to be able to get my own job or find my own way in life. And Norman's like, gets even a hard on. He's like, wow, I really respect that.
Yeah. I respect that, Peter.
Yeah.
Accept that, Parker.
So long story short, Harry and Peter are living together. Harry and MJ are dating, which is a strain because Peter's like, "Why didn't you tell me?" And
yeah, it goes back to that original, like, it's just really an uncomfy feeling. And Harry's a prick, and Franco plays him very well.
but also like an endearing prick, like a real prick.
Exactly. Like, he doesn't necessarily know that you can tell he's spoiled, and he doesn't understand his actions have consequences, and that him doing this is going to complicate his friendship with his best friend. But he doesn't.
Kind of mirrors
not going to
James Franco in real life when you think about it.
Yeah, doesn't it? Yeah.
Listen. I don't know what to think about that whole thing.
We don't have time. We do not have time for that.
It's
we
not
don't have
good,
time, but like, yeah, but neither is Seth Rogen. So I mean, like, what are you gonna do?
No, I don't. I think the grandstanding that Seth Rogen has done is people are like, good for him for standing up and blocking out a predator from stuff. I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, I'm sure Seth had no idea any of that was happening prior. This is not a PR move to publicly move his career in the right direction forward. But anyways, back to the matter of hands. We, at this point, after graduation, we see people go off on their own ways. We talked about how Harry and MJ are dating, but then MJ does make the move into Manhattan to become an actor. Peter starts fighting petty crime and meets up or gets involved with the Daily Bugle as a photographer.
Our
this is where we
best character in the entire series, if not all-time comic book.
Jonah Jameson, played by the great J.K. Simmons, just
who
a phenomenal character.
Crushes this entire.
Oh my goodness,
he does.
Oh, he's just such an asshole, but just so fucking funny in all of his deliveries. The worst human being ever, but you love him. You think he's hilarious. You want more and more. Can I bring up
the line that he said that actually floored me?
Yes.
Where and I don't know what part of the film it is, but Peter's like, "You don't really trust anybody," and he goes, "Well, trust my barber." And that's
trust my barber.
And he puts and they do the little pan out, and you see his shitty fucking haircut.
Yeah. Oh. It's so good. And his lines are delivered so great. Every scene with him in it makes this film. If this film was truly terrible, these scenes would still save it to make it watchable. I'm just saying, like,
absolutely.
And we don't have time to go through all the quotes, but you can look up a compilation of it on YouTube. You can look up all of his scenes there. Someone's mashed them together, and it's well worth just watching that.
J.K. Simmons plays this part so well that he was brought back for later series to play the same character.
So he actually
no one else.
He actually played this so well. J. Jonah Jameson, who's a big character in the comic, actually was a very small character in this movie. They added more scenes for him because he did it so well.
Had to.
Yeah, that goes back to the brilliance of Sam Raimi knowing what he has. We talk about him knowing his actors, letting Willem Dafoe play in the world, and knowing that, hey, we got something with this guy. Let's add more. That's a great director right there. Whether you like his work or not, that's how you become a great director, and that's why he's been doing it for so long, and no one says anything negative about him.
Well, anyways, Peter, being the photographer that he is, he has an in to selling pictures of Spider-Man, because this masked vigilante going around stopping petty criminals is all over the front page of the Daily Bugle, which I would say is comparable to the New Yorker or something like that. It's not the New York Times, but the New Yorker. I think it's a very similar logo and color scheme that they have as well. But, he gives them all these photos, and Jonah Jameson's like, all right, here's $300, go collect it. There was another little cameo here. I don't know if you all caught it. I'm sure one of you did. But the person who wrote his check, did you recognize who that actor was?
No.
Who wrote the check? It was Elizabeth Smart.
Elizabeth Banks.
Elizabeth Banks. Yes, Elizabeth Banks.
It is. It
was
was
Elizabeth
one of her
Banks.
first movies.
But and while we're talking about him becoming photographer, did you see how crisp his photos were and how well set they were, well lit?
Yes.
That was a point I wanted to make earlier. When he was a photographer earlier, he wasn't able to get a clean photo at all. But now that he has the confidence of being Spider-Man and knowing what he's doing, his photography even got way better. So
imagine that.
Yeah, and it's a subtle thing of Peter becoming more confident. But we're speeding along. There's a scene too where Norman Osborn is Green Goblin, and he ends up blowing up the entire military defense.
Let's talk about the board scene real quickly. Before that happens, it's been told to Norman that the board is selling the company to Quest. They're absolving the company, and Norman needs to retire within 30 days, and there's nothing he can do. Which then, that's what inspires this scene that you just referenced.
Yeah, because he
there's some sort of international festival or whatever. And
it's not the international festival. This is a scene where the military contracts that Norman's Corp has lost, they're going to give to another company, and they go out to this desert or this area where they're watching this. It looks like a mech or something that this other company's presenting in front of the military board.
So cool.
And it's
so cool.
And it's just like, it's kind of functional, but the Green Goblin comes out of nowhere and blows it up and then kills everybody there. And then that's Norman's first strike. And then flashing forward, some of the board members at Oscorp are at this. It's an international festival. It's kind of like, it looks like Macy's Day Parade. But it's a international festival of international peace and love. And the Oscorp board's going to be there, and Harry has Mary Jane there, and she's wearing a Chinese dress, I guess, or like I don't know exactly what country, but
be careful, Chase. Don't be careful.
It wasn't a kimono, but it was
it's some kind of Chinese. My grandmother had one of those.
Yeah, celebration, it's traditional dress, and it's like, why is she wearing that?
It's like a world culture thing, Chase. Shut the fuck up. All right.
She's as white as she could be. But anyway,
she looked good though. She did look good.
But she's there with Harry and the board of Oscorp, and they're waiting to see Harry's dad. Peter's there shooting photos of it, and then all of a sudden the Green Goblin shows up and turns the entire Oscorp board into skeletons.
That was so deserved. It is literally their fault. A lot of this stuff is happening. Like, a lot of it. Like, in fact, I would say it is their fault that, like, we wouldn't have a movie without it, but, like, I didn't feel bad for them one bit. I'm like, you all fucking deserve exactly what you get. There's a lot of corporate evil that's being, like, played at in this movie. And I don't know if you caught Uncle Ben at the beginning, like, talking about, like, his pension. He's like, well, I'd be doing a lot better if I wasn't, like, laid off after 35 years. It seems the companies are downsizing the people and upsizing the profit. There's a lot of undertones of that, and I just genuinely thought that, like, they got what they deserved, and I was so happy when he disintegrated them. Yeah, they upset me thoroughly throughout that entire thing.
Spider-Man shows up, and the Green Goblin's already killed the board, and he's kind of flying around causing all kinds of issues, and this is where we get the first Spider-Man versus Green Goblin battle. Andrew, can you briefly take us through this and hit the high points?
I mean, yeah, it happens pretty quickly. He eviscerates those board members with can't believe a pumpkin bomb, but then he blows up that balcony. Mary Jane is falling at this point. I think he takes Mary Jane, MJ, I'm just going to say, and he's pretty much flying around the square with the Goblin flying after him. They shoot some webs at him. They go through buildings. I don't even remember the denouement of the scene, but they battle it out in air, and people see that there's a fucking evil dude on some hoverboard dressed in some weird costume who's terrorizing the town and killing people and blowing up their inflatables. And that's pretty much the gist of it. I don't know if there are any particular moments that needed to be touched upon here, but it's their first little battle out in the open.
The only thing that needs to be touched upon is the fact that Spider-Man ends up saving Mary Jane and web swinging her out of danger and onto this rooftop somewhere. And
it was some sort of like a private estate, if you will, because there was already a couple there.
Some kind of I don't know. It was some kind of garden, and she's smitten with Spider-Man a little bit here, and he's like, "You know who I am?" And she's like, "I do." And he's like, "Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man," and he jumps off the building, which I thought was And we got to talk about the suit because the suits for the Green Goblin and Spider-Man look incredible, and they made that shit perfectly. It looks incredible. They also, I don't know,
still look incredible. They
Yeah.
still look amazing.
They
now they do.
And what's funny about that is 6 of them were stolen. And they put out a $25,000 reward, and it turns out, I don't know where this was filmed. I'm assuming it looks like a lot of Universal and on site in New York, but it ended up being a security guard on set stole 6 of the Spider-Man suits, and they ended up apprehending him. Yeah, but I don't know how it all played out. I'm sure he got in a lot of hot water, but yeah, they recovered those suits. But incredible looking suits. And now we kind of move forward here, and what happens next, Kyle? So he saved Mary Jane. He now understands he has a villain to go after in the Green Goblin. What happens next?
So this is where we have this isn't Thanksgiving yet, is it?
No, there is. I can take this one because I remember this one really well, if you don't mind. I know exactly
go
what
ahead.
we got to discuss here. They're back in the city somewhere. MJ is getting off of her
That's right. Yes.
diner shift. And guess who's there? Like right around the corner, but her old neighbor, Peter Parker.
Peter.
Yeah. Oh, MJ, hey. How are you doing? Oh, how's it going?
Well, he delivers a really creepy line too, because he's like, oh, I was just in the neighborhood. I had to take 3 buses and 2 cabs to get to the neighborhood. And
get here,
like, okay,
but
yeah,
I'm here.
Yeah, that's how I got in the neighborhood.
But let's remember for our people who are not of the proper age to be a real adult or a human, that is, this is how people used to kind of communicate back in the day. Or like you couldn't see where somebody was on social media. There were no cell phones really. Like this is like pre all of that, barely internet, and they don't even reference any of that in this movie. So yes, there's a little creep element to it for sure. But
I mean, it
clearly
clearly seemed like Peter knew when her shift got off or when she was done with work, and he just happened to show up, inconspicuously right there down the block to say hi and ask her how she's doing and wish her luck and have her go on her way. And that's pretty much all it was. She walks down the street and he's watching just because he wants to make sure that she's safe and he can fly off and do his thing. But then she turns down like an alleyway and she sees like one dude go after her. And he's like, oh boy, all right, let's get into gear here. And then starts to rain. She gets cornered by like 4 people altogether, just some street ruffians. You don't really run into those in Midtown Manhattan, but she did. And they were catcalling and getting aggressive. And right before they all put their hands on her, Spider-Man Peter shoots off 4 web shots on their back and pulls them and slings them, 20 yards behind. And
Andrew
saves her.
Would it be safe to say that they gave Spider-Man gave those guys some back shots?
Oh yeah.
Some healthy back shots.
Aggressive back shots.
Aggressive back shots.
But speaking of aggressive
back shots.
Speaking of aggressive, we get the famous kiss scene too.
Yes, Chase. Yes, that's coming up.
That was apparently a horrible filming session for Kirsten Dunst and Tobey Maguire.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was going to say, both of them seemed like they were suffering a little bit. She looked like she was really cold, and he looked like he might have had a headache.
Yeah,
the last of the century.
He said that when she pulled the mask down because they were using so much water, the artificial rain got all in his nose. So immediately when she pulled the mask down, he was just like basically being waterboarded. And she said
she liked it.
She said she couldn't feel anything because she was freezing so much, and water was just rushing through because they just used so much. It was rushing into her mouth, so she was having to keep her mouth like kind of closed. And she said it was like one of the worst scenes she's ever filmed. And Toby said, yeah, absolutely, it was horrible. And I was upside down so long, Kyle. To your point, his blood was rushing to his head. So it creates this romantic scene. So when you see it, you're like, wow, that's incredibly romantic, sexy, whatever else you want to say. And in hindsight, it was absolutely terrible. But upside down kiss Spider-Man, it became a legendary scene.
It's iconic and referenced again, even in the second movie. But I got to say, and this is a family podcast, but Kirsten Dunst looked really, really incredible in this scene. I don't know if y'all noticed, but she looked very good.
Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah,
Nice job.
Andrew, we're really chatting you up on that one. So
I mean, it needs to be discussed. We're,
so
it's there.
we've gone way too long on this. Speeding along here, Andrew, what happens next after the kiss scene?
This is when the Goblin breaks into the Daily Bugle and threatens Jameson and wants to know who the fuck is taking pictures of Spider-Man, because then he's going to be able to get to Spider-Man. And of course, I think like Spider-Man shows up, kind of quells it. But at this point, Jonah Jameson thinks this is all Spider-Man's fault. And this is what leads to a campaign of smearing him in the news and whatnot. And this is where the Goblin takes Spider-Man on top of a rooftop and tries to create some sort of truce. He's like, let's be friends. We're special, you and I. We could do a lot together. Think about it. And he sends him on the way. And then shortly after that, they have another encounter. I don't think Peter or Spider-Man ever got back to the Green Goblin in regards to that proposition. I wouldn't. Fuck the Green Goblin.
No, fuck him.
He shows up at some burning apartment building, and there's a woman screaming about her baby. Roof's going to collapse. Give me my baby. Who saves the day? Who jumps into the burning building and gets the baby? It's Spider-Man. Brings it down in its little swaddling blanket, hands it to the mother. Baby's fine, but then there's another voice.
This was a scary scene for me as a kid.
It was. Yes, it was very scary.
This is where Sam Raimi is using the Evil Dead chops. But you hear, you hear the secondary voice, and it sounds like an old lady screaming, and it's a very vile, top of your ears type of scream. And Peter goes back in, and what happens when he goes back in?
He's searching around.
Like, where are you? Where are you?
This building is about to collapse. I mean, everything is on fire. He's walking around on eggshells because he has to be careful. He sees through some blown out like doorway that there is clearly someone with a blanket around their head who is wandering and aimlessly lost in this fire. And he goes to that person, turns around, it's the fucking Goblin, and he's got him cornered. And this was a cool scene because he throws these blades at him, like 3 or 4 spinning blades that would probably easily slice your jugular if they got to it. But he jumps up and does some like twisting barrel roll and avoids them all. One, I think, grabs his forearm and gives him a little
cuts his forearm.
Yeah,
which shows how sharp those things are, is because he that thing just barely nicks him, and it cuts the shit out of his forearm, which comes into play later.
But he knows that, Spider-Man knows that there's a warrant out for his arrest. There's cops waiting for him down below. He's got this adversary in a burning building right in front of him, so he just escapes. He gets out. I don't think it's anything crazy, but he gets out and out from underneath the Goblin's clutches there. And mind you, I'm pretty sure this is Thanksgiving Day.
It is.
This is thing on Thanksgiving.
And so, because Harry and Peter are hosting Thanksgiving for Mary Jane, Norman, and Aunt May, and they all show up, and Peter shows up, and he ends up in the house, and he's in his Spider-Man attire, and I don't know how Norman beats him over there, and he kind of goes in Peter's room, and Peter's up top on the roof, and he's bleeding from the cut, and the blood's like trickling down. There's this tense scene where Norman's about to walk under the blood, and he turns around and walks away, and the blood hits the floor. And then we go to the Thanksgiving dinner scene, and Aunt May notices Peter's bleeding, and he's like, "You're bleeding." And he's like, "I got clipped by a bike messenger." And he pulls open his like shirt, and Norman knows instantly. He's like, because he knew that Spider-Man got cut. So Norman's starting to kind of put the 2 and 2 together, and they have kind of this tense back and forth between the two. And at one point, Norman gets up to leave because he kind of like, I got work to do now. And he leaves, and Harry's like, "Why are you leaving?" Like, "I want you to meet Mary Jane and all this." And he's like, "Oh, she's a dime a dozen. She's a trash bag hoe, or whatever." Like,
he's like, make sure when you're done using her, you bring her quick. Yeah. Like, really piece of shit kind of stuff. But this is something we need to talk about because we haven't talked about it yet, very briefly. When he got injected with the serum, one of the things they noted with some of the test trials was that one of the reasons why they wanted to bring it back to formula was that because the rats they tested it in, like the side effects were like
aggression.
aggression and insanity kind of shit, like losing your mind. He is very much losing his mind at this point, and the other, like the Green Goblin, is coming out, and Norman is not. So he does not have control over himself,
which
which is
is
kind of sad,
which
honestly.
yeah, and it's reflected in like I think a next scene or a scene down the road where he's
Yep.
in the mansion and the mirror's there, and you hear this like another
Thanks.
horror based scene where you hear the laughter from the Green Goblin, and he looks in the mirror and sees himself. But the Goblin mask is on the chair, so it's like he's talking to the Goblin but talking to himself. And you see his good side. He's like, I can't do that. Peter's a good boy, and he's Harry's best friend. And he's like, he's not. He's the enemy. And so the Goblin's talking him in. So good point, Kyle. About they show this insanity from this mirror standpoint, which is a really well done scene. And then moving forward, Andrew, now they know who each other are, or does I don't think Peter has put in Norman, right? I think it's just Norman knows who Peter is. But
Norman knows.
But Norman, doesn't he capture Aunt May at this point?
Yes, it was after that night. We fast forward to May in her bedroom. She's doing her nightly prayers. She's saying the Our Father.
Which I didn't know until this happened. I forgot she's Catholic.
Oh, is
Crazy.
she?
Yes.
Yeah, she has the rosary in her hand too.
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing the rosary, but I mean, it makes sense. I mean, there's plenty of Catholics in New York, especially those of an older generation.
No,
but
I think she's one of three.
She's one of three. I agree with you. Andrew, shut up. You never lived in New York. You don't know what you're talking about.
And you're also not
Catholic.
Catholic.
You're right.
Bet you're not even a Knicks fan.
Yeah, I bet you're Methodist, Andrew.
Swine.
Maybe let's not steer clear of the goal here.
So she's praying. So she's praying, and then
right before she says, "Deliver us from evil," the fucking goblin throws a pumpkin bomb through her bedroom window, exploding it, and she falls back, and she looks up and screams the line, "Deliver us from evil," and he's on his hoverboard cackling and
because he makes her say it. He's like, "Finish it."
Yes, say it, finish it. Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, that was super evil." I was like, that was very villainous, like, and very intelligent villain. Like, I loved it. Peter goes to the hospital and finds Aunt May. She's all distressed and just like taken aback by it. And he kind of starts putting together the Green Goblin knows who he is. And at one point, Aunt May gets better. And he's like, well, he knows I'm Peter Parker. How does he know? And Aunt May's telling him, like, they're having this kind of heart-to-heart conversation about Mary Jane. And he's like, you always did love her. Anybody could see that from a mile away. And Peter's like, oh, shit. Anybody?
He calls Mary Jane after that conversation on the payphone, and it rings and rings, gets to her voicemail, and he leaves them this weird message like, hey, Mary Jane, it's Peter. Where are you? I'm trying to get in touch with you. Yeah, give me a call when you can. Just super dumb and dorky. And that's when Norman, a.k.a. the Green Goblin, gets on and starts laughing. And he's like, Peter, I know who you are. And then you hear MJ's voice screaming in the background. And then that's when he goes.
And that's when we see that Mary Jane has been taken to is it the Brooklyn Bridge?
It's not the Brooklyn Bridge. It's the bridge over the East River, because you got the Roosevelt Island tram.
Roosevelt Island.
It's right there.
So, and long story short here too. So Spider-Man shows up, and Green Goblin gives him two options. He has the Roosevelt Island tram in one hand, like the cable he cut, and the tram is full of people, and he's got Mary Jane in the other hand. He's standing at the very top of the bridge, and he's like, you must choose, my hero. Do you save the woman you love or a bunch of innocent people? And he drops them at the same time, but drops them so close to each other that all Spider-Man has to do is grab her and the cart, and he has basically Mary Jane in one arm, the cart in another, and he's holding on to his web, and he's holding on to both. Yeah. And then that's when the Green Goblin comes down and starts like attacking him. And I think it's funny because as he's holding them, you see this little barge coming out of nowhere, and the guys are like, "Hold on, we're coming closer to you. We're going to bring the barge down." And they're saying it so calm. So calm. Like, And then what happens here, Kyle? Like now that they're in this battle.
Well, right after those two gentlemen say, "Hey, come over. We'll get the barge underneath you, so you can land the gondola on the barge and sink our boat at the same time." What the fuck kind of reasoning is that? So fucking stupid. But this whole sequence kind of happens pretty quick. He saves everybody. Peter saves everybody. He spins a web onto the gondola, or no, onto holding the gondola cable with one hand and the web hand on the other, attached to the bridge. Mary Jane is just on him, and he's like, "You gotta climb down." She's like, "I can't climb down." And I was like, "Girl, you gotta shit or get off the pot. Like, what? Like, are we gonna go down there? Or are we gonna die? Like, what do you want to do?"
Let's
You
go
gotta do
ahead and
something.
tell you that off the pot means dead.
Yeah. So what are we? We got to shit. So he's doing his best while the Green Goblin is just playing rope-a-dope on his face. He just keeps on getting on his jet, coming around for a swing, and just beats the shit out of him.
But it helps. It helps because
it does help him.
The people that are on the Ed Cock Queensboro Bridge, it's probably Ed Cook, but it's spelled Ed Cock. They're up top watching this all unfold. And there's all these typical New Yorkers like, "Hey, yeah, you come for Spider-Man, you come for us." They start throwing shit at the Green Goblin as he's attacking Peter. He could have easily killed Peter in that moment, but
what year was this filmed?
2002.
Probably 2001, 2000.
So this is right when
you're about to make the point. You're about to make the point that I was about to make. So,
yep, it's another movie in New York.
Well, this
after 9/11, which means that we are going to reference it in some way, shape, or form. And there's your reference. Yep. You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us.
And I'm not sure when this was put into the film. So the film finished shooting. This was going to be something I was going to make, but I was waiting for the right point. The film finished shooting before the September 11th attacks. But after the September 11th attacks, like this was going to be a big movie. They had made teaser trailers of Spider-Man wrapping up criminals in between the Twin Towers. They'd already made that, and they released that in some like E3s and stuff before the attack that summer. And you can find it somewhere online. I try to relook it up, but it's hard to find. But I've seen it before. You can see there's also another teaser photo, like a poster of Spider-Man in his eyes, and you can see the Twin Towers. They removed the Twin Towers from the poster after that. So there's a pre-Spider-Man 9/11 poster out there that's worth a lot of money if you can get a hold of it, with the Twin Towers in his eyes. And then there's the trailer that came out before this. But they finished this film before all that happened. But I wonder if they added this in later on, because those guys look like they're on a set throwing. They don't look like they're in the same like scene, you know? Like it could have been something that they added later on when they did some, because they did some reshoots for this. But to Kyle's point, it is very after 9/11, like this is New York. New York will stand tall kind of thing. Unless you are the Knicks and you win the series, then they're going to burn their whole city down for whatever reason.
Or beat a bunch of people in the Five Guys. I'll send it to you, but it was after the Knicks lost last week. There are some people who went into a Five Guys and just started fucking shit up. There was a guy who had hopped the line. He grabbed one of like the fryer baskets and like tried to throw it at the people who were attacking him, but as he was throwing it, he got hit by like 4 different chairs across the counter from different angles, and then they jumped over and just started beating him.
That's hilarious.
It was actually hilarious. It was absurd. But anyways,
anyways, so we're so they end up at one point. He's able to set the gondola and Mary Jane down on the barge. We're speeding along here, and the Green Goblin flies Peter into, I guess, an abandoned warehouse or abandoned like foundry, whatever we're going to call that. It's pretty dilapidated and there's no one nearby. It looks like it's on the pier. And I was talking about the color palette earlier. So you see the red of the brick, which represents Peter, and you see the green of the environment that's coming through. So we get the clash and the smoke. He puts both color palettes together in this one scene, the final battle, which I thought was super impressive, and I would not have understood that as a kid. But we get our final battle. They go back and forth. Peter's still getting the shit kicked out of him. His suit is pretty much torn. Half his face is hanging out.
Norman throws a pumpkin bomb at him and explodes in his face. And he doesn't die.
I don't know how that didn't or shrapnel didn't go into his eyes. I don't know how that. So, or he didn't end up with third-degree burns. I don't know. Or his skin should have been melted off. But he's getting his ass beat, and somehow at the end of it, he ends up doing he ends up getting like upset or something. He ends up just turning the tide and beating the shit out of Norman. And Norman snaps out of his Green Goblin phase for a second, and Peter's talking to him, and Norman's saying all these things. Andrew, I think you have the quotes with you on what Norman starts saying to him.
I have the final quote. He's like, "I've been like a father to you. Come here and be my son." And Peter, says, "I had a father. His name was Ben Parker." And then it flips again with Norman, and he says, "Godspeed, Spider-Man." And that's when he hoverboard with the daggers.
The glider comes out. Yeah, the glider comes out and has blades coming out of the front of it, and it flies through Peter. But Peter recognizes it, does a backflip over it, which he's done the whole film. And the glider gets close to Norman, and he goes, "Oh," and which I thought was kind of funny. And then the glider stabs Norman and basically kills him. So the battle ends there. Peter has vanquished evil. And we cut to Norman's house, which, if I'm not mistaken, Harry was living in the apartment, right? He was living with Peter. So why was Harry at Norman's house? I don't know. So Peter takes Norman, wraps him up, takes all the shit off of him so no one knows, and puts him in his own bed. So it looks like he just, I guess, got yeeted in the middle of the night. And Harry just happens to come in and see Spider-Man and thinking Spider-Man killed his dad. And
he happens to just grab the gun that's conveniently located in the drawer of the low boy right by the front door.
Right, and then Spider-Man's gone. So that sets up for a second film. Now, Harry has a lot of hate for Spider-Man, which, Peter's not going to tell him the truth, so that's kind of the hero responsibility that Ben was talking about earlier. Everyone's saved, and then we get to the funeral of Norman, and Peter's there, and Harry's talking about how much he hates Spider-Man. He's going to make sure he kills Spider-Man, and then he's trying to walk away, and Mary Jane ends up confessing her love for him, despite the fact that he's never said anything to her. She was like, I just love that you love me and who I am. I'm in love with you, and kisses him. And this is a very poignant scene, too. Go ahead, Kyle.
It is, but it's also kind of... I love this scene because this is not done in any other superhero movie ever. It is, a lot of them, to be fair, don't really even approach the romantic angle as much anymore. I think there are some that do, but him essentially saying yo, this whole scene, he's like, I feel the same way. I like you. I love you. Yes, I'll always be your friend, but I can't do this right now. And that's pretty much what the woman would say usually.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
He says it very poignantly because she's like, he knows she got in trouble because of him, and that's what he realizes, and it's a tough decision to make because he's gonna put her in jeopardy, and this is what being a superhero is all about. And because in the modern Marvel movies, you get the girl, you have the friends, everything ends up hunky dory at the fucking end, no matter what. We'll go through a wormhole if it doesn't, and we'll make it right that way. That's the modern Marvel way to do it. But in this scene, he's got to give up his love of his life because it saves her life down the road. So he's doing something very selfless. And what he tells her he's like, we can be friends, but that's all I have to give. And to your point, Kyle, that is kind of something similar to how it would play out in an opposite relationship,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I also think that she doesn't deserve his love. Has terrible, terrible choice in Ned the whole time. Terrible choices.
Well, and I'll say this: the reaction from Peter is great in this scene. It makes this scene worthwhile. But her falling in love with him makes no sense because they have not built any type of love relationship. They don't even have a friendship at this point. They just kind of see each other occasionally, and he's very awkward around her. I don't understand what she would be like all of a sudden. Oh, I love you, Peter, because I was thinking about you as I almost died. Because I made out with Spider-Man a couple of times, and I think he's really sexy. It's just I love you, Peter, until Spider-Man comes along. But that's kind of one of those weird, they didn't earn it for me in her loving him. Now,
I'm with you because I thought that their relationship was weird and estranged. There were moments that were tender, but again, it just felt like for someone that they had known that someone that Peter had known for so long, and vice versa. I don't know. There was just like a
so
separation there that never made full sense to me.
and this is
So
a trilogy, right? So I
yes,
think it's fine in the way it was written, but they should have done this scene differently so that they can
yeah,
continue to build on it in the second and third film and build the true love aspect of it. They didn't. They kind of rushed it here, and it just does not make sense. How he responds makes sense, and like to Kyle's point, it's like you don't see that very often, where it's kind of like he kind of turned down something, and you get a pretty rough ending because that's it. That's how it ends. Is like him turning down the love of his life, knowing that he's got to be more responsible and that he's got a hard road to hoe with like the powers that he has, because now he has a broken friendship with Harry, who was a prick to him anyway. He's got to hold this
Correct.
secret that he's Spider-Man. He can't tell anybody because he knows it hurts people, and he now knows the secret of Norman that he's got to keep buried, and Harry thinks that Peter killed him, which is also guilt. That's the ending here.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty
Yeah.
rough ending.
It's essentially like starting off the Star Wars trilogy with The Empire Strikes Back, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Very much the same feels like a lot of loss and a lot of people not getting what they want at the end of the day.
But reality, it's a reality check of like such responsibility. So love the ending. Don't necessarily love how they got Mary Jane's character there, and I think they could have done a lot better. But right here, I think it ended pretty strong for something you don't really see very often, because in superhero movies now, you have to end on the happy note. That you have to. And even in Avengers Part 1 or whatever, like that was the last movie I think that they did something like that. I don't know. I don't keep up with them anymore. But Andrew, this was your pick. Let's start with you. How do you feel about this movie now, watching it as an adult? And we'll keep this one brief. We've already kind of gone over.
it was pretty entertaining. I hadn't watched this in a long time. As I referenced earlier, there were a lot of times where I conflated the sequel scenes with what was happening and was expecting to see something and then realizing, oh, wait, never mind. That's in part two. But it was entertaining. It was, I recently watched Spider-Man No Way Home like a couple weeks ago, and I kind of didn't like that. People love that movie, but there was just something about it that I didn't like. Maybe it was all the CGI characters, and there was just some stupidity to it that really easy writing. I just didn't care for it. And I went into it with an open mind, hoping to enjoy it because I hadn't seen that one of the Holland installation. And at that point, I was like, I want to go back and watch the original. I want to go watch the Tobey Maguire version of this because that is my childhood Spider-Man. No offense to Andrew Garfield or Holland, who I think are both great. But
it is our childhood Spider-Man because that's what we grew up with. And for a while, it was just Tobey Maguire is all we had.
Yeah, but I enjoyed it. It wasn't a chore. There are moments where it was a little hokey and I rolled my eyes, but that's to be expected with any superhero movie. It was a good watch, for sure.
Yeah. Kyle, what about you?
The overall scope of this movie, in terms of just how simple it is at telling a story, but also so specific with the character of Spider-Man, is masterfully executed. It is probably one of the best, if not the best, or tied for the best superhero movie. And I would put X-Men up there with that and the first Iron Man, all in that first category of very well done superhero movies. It does a really good job of having fun, but also being poignant. And there are some cool lessons in there. And also the father figure aspect of it was very well done. And him this is a coming of age story, finding out who you are as a person. And it's still very much applicable today, 24 years later at this point, very applicable today. And I love the acting. Tobey Maguire is a great actor, but also just he's a great Peter Parker. He is in my mind, he is the only Peter Parker. And then maybe Tom Holland. And then Andrew Garfield. That's my opinion. Yeah. But he's so far and away the best. I just don't have anything else to add to that. He did a great job. Kirsten Dunst, great casting choice. But the real goat that helped sell this movie without him wouldn't be the same would be Willem Dafoe as the villain and kickstarting like the modern era of like a good villains. Without his kind of menacing presence, I don't think Christopher Nolan would be having such good villains as Heath Ledger or Bane. Very different kind of villain, but like it's without this, we would have none of that. I don't think. Just very well done. I really enjoyed watching it again.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. I enjoyed my watch through this. I remembered all of it. When it started going, I was picking scenes like right as they were coming up, but I still enjoyed it. I was still in it. Picked up on some stuff that I didn't catch when I was a kid. I mean, we talked about the color palette, the way that it was shot was really well done. It was more than a superhero movie, is how it was shot. It was shot with so much care and so much just exploration towards the characters. There's some hokiness here and there, and it's not the best dialogue, and especially like we talk about like Peter and Mary Jane's relationship, and Tobey Maguire is a good Spider-Man. I have a hot take that I think Andrew Garfield's the best Spider-Man. He was just in the worst movies.
That's fair. I mean, that's okay. I did not like those movies.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan. I wasn't
very well done.
I wasn't a big fan of turning Peter into a punk rock skater that's kind of cool. But I think Andrew Garfield in the right context could be the best Spider-Man because his one-liners and the quips in those movies were more Spider-Man than anything.
I think Andrew Garfield's the best actor of the three, and it's not particularly close. That's probably why.
Yeah,
far and away, he's the most talented of those three.
Right.
So,
and
tracks.
Yeah, so like that was my take there, but I do love Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man. He is my Spider-Man. He's what I grew up with. But overall, like, really enjoyed it, and I love, like, me and Kyle kind of hinted around it, but I love the stakes here. We lose stakes in some of these modern superhero films. Like, nothing bad happens to anybody, and if it does, it eventually comes back. No, 2 people died in this film. You had Norman Osborn pass away, which causes ripples down the road, and you have Uncle Ben dying. And I know those are things that happen in the comic book. Well, I don't know if Norman dies in the comic book, but I know Uncle Ben dies in the comic book. We know that. But there's loss of life and there's gravity to these situations, you know, and even when Aunt May has her shit, you're like, oh, is she going to die too? So you feel like everybody's in jeopardy, you know? And think about the Oscorp board dying. A lot of people perish in this film, and I think that creates a lot of gravity and stakes. It's like, you know, not everything's going to end well. And even if they do end particularly well, it's not always pretty. And that's kind of what this film showed for growing up, is it's not pretty. And you're going to lose things and you're going to lose life. And it's just, it's hard, but you got to make the tough decisions. Andrew, does it hold up?
Yeah, easily.
Kyle, does it hold up?
Yes, 1,000%, yes.
I agree. I think this one is definitely one of those that we put in the club of it holds up and you need to watch it. Well, quickly before we get out of here, let's look at the IMDb ratings. But first, Andrew, what would you give it on IMDb?
Give it like a 7.1.
Okay. Kyle, what would you give it?
I think I might go a little higher than a 7.1. I don't think that's terribly fair, Andrew. But I'm going to go
opinion, but
I don't think. I mean, I know, but like this kickstarted the entire like comic book.
It's okay.
Marvel
That's my
Universe
opinion.
franchise.
Give yours. That's yours.
So,
give yours.
So I mean, like, just to be clear, if we ever do any other comic books, none of them will score higher than this one. Just asking for my own edification.
No.
Okay. Then I would give it a 7.4.
7.4. I was going to give it a 7.3, which is pretty high for me in a comic book movie. But what is it actually, Andrew? Do you know?
7.4.
So
we're all right there.
Right there.
7.1, not that egregiously far off, but
yeah. About time. You know what we do around here. We reach into your childhood nostalgia, pull the movies from your past out. We pulled out Spider-Man, found out it holds up. It's great. We enjoyed it. One of the best superhero movies we've seen probably ever in the history of history. But, Andrew, do you want to tell the folks back at home what we're doing next week? It's a bit of a side quest from a superhero movie.
We're going to be doing the legendary Zoolander. It will be a fun visit. I haven't seen this one in 20 years. Not 20 years. Yeah, about 22 years.
It's been a long time for me too, and it used to make me really laugh. Let's see if those jokes still hold up. But you can catch that next week. So in the meantime, go follow us on social media so you can see what is coming down the pipe in the future. And then we'll catch you all next week for Zoolander.